My name is Nick Albares, and I'm running for the United States Senate here in Louisiana. It's a pleasure to be in Franklin, Louisiana tonight. This is where my family is from, as a matter of fact. My grandfather was born here in Franklin. My great-grandparents were born and raised here in Franklin. There's some Albares in the cemetery. But my grandfather moved to New Orleans when he was, I think, about 10 or 11 years old. So love to be here in Franklin. We enjoyed some good food before we came over. But look, I'm running for the United States Senate because I have a very simple political philosophy. Every person is important. Every person is important. Every person has dignity. And our public policy ought to reflect that. And you know what? In this Democratic primary, you're going to see something extremely different from what you're seeing on the other side. Because Mr. Davis, I appreciate him so much, and he is an inspiration to me. I'm going to say that. I don't think on the other side you're going to hear people talking about their so-called opponents like that. Because it seems like on the other side, what they're doing is seeing who is closest to the president, right? And my thing, I'm about being closest to the people. Okay? So my career has spanned 20 years now, and it's been focused on public service from the beginning. I graduated from the University of Notre Dame, and I studied theology and focused on social ethics. I came to New Orleans, the place of my birth, after Katrina, came back to New Orleans during school to help rebuild and restore that community. But as I was gutting out houses and rebuilding houses, I realized it wasn't just houses that needed to be gutted out and rebuilt. It was the policies that were keeping people down that needed to be gutted out, and policies that could build people back up that needed to be rebuilt. So that got me into how can we as a community organize and bring strength and power to our policy discussions. So what did I do? I went and I got my master's degree in public policy. I moved up to D.C. for a little while so that I could get a first-hand view of how to do it. I spent some time on Capitol Hill. I worked in the Obama administration during college or during graduate school. But then I said, I need to come on back to Louisiana. I saw opportunity because Governor John Bel Edwards had just been elected. And I said, let's get some things done. So I joined Governor Edwards' administration as a policy advisor. I worked to expand health care to 500,000 people through the Medicaid expansion and protect it when they tried to come gut it. When there was the repeal and replace effort during the first Trump administration, y'all remember that? They tried to repeal the Affordable Care Act. I led town halls all throughout the state talking to people just like this, saying, these are the devastating impacts that will happen if these health care cuts go through. Just the same, we got a coalition together when this so-called one big beautiful bill started being talked about in Congress. We said, this is going to be the impact for Louisiana. But this time, Congress passed it anyway. But I'll tell you what, before they did, I worked with a bipartisan group of legislators in the state capitol, and they voted overwhelmingly to say that Congress should not be cutting Medicaid, because they know that whether you're Republican or Democrat, it doesn't matter when you show up to the doctor and you need health coverage. That should not bankrupt you. Simply put. So I'm going to continue to fight to restore what's been cut. Because guess when they put in the effective date for that? Does anybody know when the effective date for those Medicaid cuts, $1 trillion is? January 1st, 2027. But we got to make sure that they know that health care is on the ballot this November. And let me be very clear, y'all. In this election, I am running to win in November. It does not matter what they say about the odds here in Louisiana. I know that when we tap into shared values, when we talk about the reality that we want to walk out onto those streets and feel safe, we want to be able to go to the doctor when we get sick, we want our kids going to good schools with teachers that are paid a fair wage. Those are values that every Louisianan should share. And I believe they do. And I believe that people are tired of the chaos of what we're seeing in Washington, D.C. I think that people don't want us going into a war where we're spending billions of dollars and billionaires are making out like bandits while people at home can't afford for eggs and milk and the basics. Y'all, what are we even doing? What are we even doing? I think the people of Louisiana are ready for change, and I'm ready to bring it. I am ready to organize in this state from South Louisiana to North Louisiana, all the way on down. We are going to get after it this election, and I am going to work every single day to represent you. Y'all, we can do this. We can do this. This is about people. And our leaders need to understand that people-focused policy is what we're about. So look, I'm going to get into some specifics now. And I wrote down some notes because I heard y'all's questions, so I want to go ahead and address those. Gun violence was asked about. This is really personal for me. I don't know if anyone is open to sharing who has been affected by gun violence in some which way, whether in the community or personally. Anybody? Who's been affected by gun violence? You know, as you mentioned, Louisiana has statistics that just should not be in place. And we cannot put our hands up and say, there is nothing that we can do. Because I firmly believe that if we take on this complicated issue, we can make progress. Y'all, 3 years ago, I was in bed, and I heard what I thought was somebody knocking on my door, really loud, in the middle of the night. Instinctually, as a father and as a husband, I have 3 young kids, late ages, 11, 9, and 6. I bolted to my front door out of instinct. It turns out what I thought was knocking was gunshots. It was gunshots into my neighbor's car. Well, when they saw me at the door, they turned the gun on me and my wife. 7 bullets through my house, missed me by 3 feet. Most traumatic event of my life. Turns out a few weeks later, they caught the man, and he had severe mental health issues. He's been committed to a mental health facility, and you know, that's the issue with mental health. He was probably thinking he was shooting at demons or something else, but y'all, that's why we need both mental health treatment in this state that is adequate, and we need laws to make sure that people who are sick do not have access to firearms. We need a universal background check system where people are screened so that if somebody has a mental health issue, they're not getting a gun. We need safe storage policies so that children aren't able to access firearms. We need someone who is going to get into the policy details and figure out the ways that we can create solutions for our communities. That's what I'm about. We had a question about mental health and about veterans. For the past 6 years, I've worked for Volunteers of America. We provide community-based behavioral health services, but the need is greater than the reality that's out there. We need more funding to be able to provide the clinicians, the community health workers, and the system that treats people as people that is integrated. And so one of my priorities is going to be expanding what's called the Certified Community Behavioral Health Clinic model. And this speaks to the gentleman's questions about veterans care as well. Because what's known as a CCBHC, the Certified Community Behavioral Health Clinic, that's something that communities throughout the state should have access to. Right now there's just a few that are in New Orleans. But we need them not just in New Orleans, we need them in rural areas, we need them here in St. Mary Parish, we need them in Tenshaw Parish, we need them all throughout the state. Because look, it's not just one community that's facing mental health challenges. It's pervasive. You know, I keep saying, as we have these technological advances, you know, we've got all these nifty tools on our phones and everything. Y'all, we as humanity, we've got to get our stuff together so that we can leverage these tools. Because we can do a lot, but we got to take care of the people first. Okay? Veterans care is absolutely essential. At Volunteers of America, I expanded coverage for veterans. We work to provide 2 residential homes and also provide community-based services throughout the state. So there are existing services for veterans, but it's not enough. The CCBHC model, the Certified Community Behavioral Health Clinic model, is a fantastic model for serving veterans and supplementing what's at the VA. But overall, what we're talking about with this administration and the chaos that's coming, we can't have these cuts. We've got to restore everything that's going on, whether it's VA, whether it's Medicaid. There's too many cuts and not enough investment in people. Okay? Because I think that everybody desires to work hard, desires to get ahead, but we need government to play its part. Government can't do everything. We need community, we need our faith-based institutions, but government does have a role, and it should be supportive. Homelessness was something else that was asked about. In my role, again, at Volunteers of America, we work to build affordable housing. But there's never enough subsidy coming from the federal government. The rent is too high. The mortgage payments are too high. We need housing and urban development to have dedicated programs, especially for rural areas, that provide affordable housing. Because once again, it's not just the cities. It's not just the big cities. We need to be able to do this. And we can when it's something we focus on. Y'all, $1 billion. Sit back and think for a minute. You know? Think about $1 billion, the number billion. It's hard to even imagine. $1 million, right? Who can even do, what could someone even fathom with doing with $1 billion? We need to tax billionaires more so that we can pay for affordable housing, so we can pay for Medicaid. Why are we cutting the VA? We need to tax the billionaires so we can pay for the investments that take care of people to meet their basic needs, y'all. Basic needs. Because let's come back to where I started. Every person has dignity. Every person has dignity, and our public policy ought to reflect that. And when I'm your next United States Senator, I will be in D.C., and I will be a dignity Democrat, and I will show that it is possible to win in this state. Like I said, I am in this to win it. My name is Nicholas Albares. Nicholas, that full name literally means victory of the people. Y'all can look it up. I'm not making it up. It's Greek. Victory of the people. So when we win in November, this victory will not be mine. The victory will be of the people, by the people, and for the people. I'm Nick Albares. I'm number 1 on your ballot. May 16th is election day. May 2nd through 9th is early voting. I would love to earn your vote so that we can win here and now but ultimately in November, so that we can end the chaos in Washington, D.C. and bring about a dignity-focused campaign for this country. Thank you all so much. And I'm happy to take any additional questions.
I think we have only 2 questions to hit. Anybody?
Yeah, what's your position on the regulation of AI data centers, especially like how they get placed in like rural areas with failing power grids already, and so they sap all the infrastructure, and then especially get subsidized, and then the local have to basically, the citizens are paying for all those subsidies basically for all the jobs that it brings in. So that's kind of a question.
No, that's a really important question that is having major impacts on communities here in Louisiana. And it's only going to accelerate, right? Because you see all of these investments that are happening. Every decision that is made on AI needs to be tightly regulated. Right now, it is the Wild West. Because there is not a regulatory environment in place. And those regulations need to have a keen focus on the environmental impact. When I worked in the Obama administration, I worked with the energy and climate team. And we looked at how can we meet goals around carbon emissions. And when we're talking about the water table, we're talking about the energy sources, like you're saying, this can't be something that we do blindly. Every decision needs input from the local community, and if the local community gives its consent, then those decisions should continue to involve the local community. Local jobs should be created, and there should be project labor agreements put in place. But at the core of it, the federal government needs to create a regulatory standard, both for the data centers and AI usage writ large. There's a great organization called the Center for Humane Technology that's looking at this and has great policy recommendations for how we can make sure that ultimately these technologies are used for the benefit of humanity, but aren't sapping our local communities. So we need to look at what we can do for economic development, absolutely, but it cannot be at the expense of our land, our environment, or certainly not our people. Great question. Thank you for the question.
Anybody else? Okay. Well, we thank you so much for coming.
Thank you all so much.